Since morning, we have been having the theme on how to assist the disadvantaged schools. So what we are going to be doing now is we are going to be looking at how Olympiads and competitions can reach out to disadvantaged learners through research and innovation camps. So we are also going to be looking at how we can assist these suggestions of how we can assist these learners through camps, and also we are going to propose some a model and also give you some recommendations. Since we've got only 15 minutes, we are just going to get a piecemeal, but out of this fora, please feel free to engage with us, then we can discuss more. Over to you, run with it, young man.
Thank you, colleagues. So I'm going to be going really fast, so maybe our time starts now, right? As has been said, our topic is exploring a mentorship model for skills transfer through targeted interventions. How Olympiads and competitions can reach disadvantaged learners through research and innovation. If you can just help me with also moving on that end of things. We've been given the content overview already. So I just want to move to the next, where we speak about the role of STEMI, Olympiads and competitions. I won't spend too much time on that one. I think we've been spending the rest of the morning, we've been speaking about this, but it's really to promote this public awareness, understanding and appreciation of science, technology and innovation. When we look at the science engagement strategy and what we're trying to do when we speak about creating a science literate society, we believe that STEMI competitions and Olympiads are best suited to fill in that gap. But when we look now at research and innovation camps in relation to STEMI, Olympiads and competitions, we think that they are well positioned to enhance school-based mentorship. So whatever is happening in the school, how can we take that and enhance it through the camp? We also see that very, very important. They offer an environment that is relaxed, fun, and engaging. We don't always find such an environment, and especially within the school space, because it is business as usual. We take things serious. So you might see a picture on the corner. Those are professors from one of our universities, Rhodes University, and they are engaging with learners. But you can see, though they are professors, it's an informal discussion. Learners are very keen to present what they have, and they get feedback. So what is the problem then, right? The problem is that raw schools often work in isolation, and many a times they don't have access to resources. I work in the Eastern Cape, and our co-author works in Limpopo, and we have a lot of raw schools there. Whenever we approach them to say, can you participate in science competitions and STEMI Olympiads, majority of the time the response that we get is that we don't have resources. So what you then see is that many of these schools will then forego the opportunity and the exposure that comes with participating in STEMI Olympiads and competitions, right? So research and innovation camps can then play a pivotal role and then close that gap. Definition, again, I'm not going to spend too much time because we want to get to the crux of that, but basically a research and innovation camp is an organized educational program that provides hands-on learning, experience, mentoring, and activities focused on science-related subjects. So you will see that participants usually get the opportunity to be, yes, exposed to the world of science. They will experiment, they will conduct research within that camp. The objectives, which I'm also not going to touch all of them, but I thought it was also very important. When it comes to objectives, we see the need to always have objectives that, number one, measurable, but number two, which is also very important, is to say our objectives should always align with the national agenda. When we speak about the national development plan, when we speak about the science engagement strategy, there should always be alignment. So what are these objectives? We want to provide resources, support and guidance during the learner's journey in STEMI competitions. I think we spoke about that earlier on to say, well, it's not an event, there's a process to it, and we should support the learner and the educator throughout the whole process. We put that in a little bit of gold because many of the points that you see on that slide speak to the learner themselves, but we want to also equip the educator for continued learner support. Another point that I just want to raise is one of the last one is to demonstrate a culture of collaborative effort towards sustainable scientific future. How do we bring the people that are working in different spheres of science, whether it is in the science center, research institutions, universities, or NGOs that are also working in this space so that we can work together towards one agenda in the same space? And this is what a science camp does as well. What then is the motivation, next slide, for raw schools? Well, what we want to do is to bring training and workshops and competitions closer to them. Most of the times when we ask, especially when you look at some of these vast provinces, when you ask learners to come to you, it's going to be difficult because, number one, you're going to be facing costs in relation to maybe accommodation, maybe traveling, and these costs can be exorbitant. But if we take some of these programs to them, we see that we bridge that gap. We want to avail equipment and resources for research projects. One thing that we see that is very important is to say, how do we link those schools that are resourced with those that are under-resourced? We see that even in the raw context, you might have a private school in that space that might have a computer lab, and you might have just next door to it a school that does not have a computer lab. And yet that can make a vast of difference. So within the science camp, that is what we are doing there. We're linking learners with mentors. Remember, if they are doing competitions or they are doing a project of some sort, they need to be mentored, because for them, most of them, you'll see that it's the first time that they're interacting with that. So mentorship is very, very important. Well, we're assisting with connectivity. We're providing easy access to information, social media platforms. Well, they are in the raw areas. Sometimes we might think that it's easy to get onto Facebook and see what is happening, but some of these schools don't even have access to Facebook. So when we're in these science, research, and innovation camps, we see that we get the opportunity to create even WhatsApp groups that then act as our means of communication with them and where we can share resources. We want to assist with establishing science clubs. I know that this is an area that is going to be touched by other colleagues, so I won't spend much time, but the science, the research and innovation camp is a good place for us to do that. So what is the model that we're looking at? We're looking at a two-level mentorship model. One that starts at school level. Now we need to recognize what is being done already in the school space as important, and whatever then we do in the camp is enhancing what is happening in the school space. So it starts at school level, and the teacher or educator is the champion there. But the educator might be limited in subject content if competition is outside their field, right? The school might not have adequate resources to mentor learners, right? And time constraints, we're also competing with the curriculum within that space. But let us look at this in more detail. Next slide. So this is what is happening within the school space. There is a goal, whatever the goal is for the competition or Olympiad. But we'll see that for it to be successful, we need to start with planning and implementation. What are we saying there? When you introduce a competition at school level, the adoption and successful implementation of that competition is purely lies with the educator. So we see that under planning and implementation, the educator is going to be playing an active role with producing or strategizing, coming up with a timeline, for example. They are the ones that are going to be deciding the nature and extent of participation. We will see that innovation and creativity is another area that is important within the school space. When we ask our learners to come up with ideas, most of the time we see that they come up with big, unrealistic, impractical ideas. The educator is also there to curate that process and assist with ideation. There's guidance there. Motivation and emotional support, we find that to be very, very important, because many times we go and we introduce a competition at school level. We leave that learner with the educator, but when it gets tough, the learner gets discouraged, and therefore we see that the educator can play a pivotal role in ensuring that there is emotional support. The last one that is there is that, we get to success. Well, we are saying what is happening in the school space is important, but in the next slide, can we partner that and increase another level of it to it? What is that other level? It's the camp-based mentorship. We're looking at training and workshop. Remember, you as the organizer of that competition have got more information than anyone else in the area that you're operating in. So you will see that in that research and innovation training and workshops are going to be very, very important. So these are interventions that cover aspects like research and innovation. What is it from the point blank? But how do we do scientific investigation? How do we follow the scientific research methodology? Data collection, analytics, academic writing, things like that is what we're going to be looking at there. Research and creativity comes back again, because sometimes, even for the educator, when you ask them to come up with an idea for a competition, it's tough for them as well. So within the camp setting is where we are now pruning this, and we're training both. There is expert coaching. I won't speak about that, but it goes towards, specialized, where our learners are struggling with scientific concepts that might need specialized individuals. Resource utilization. Just because you have taken a laptop and given it to a raw school learner does not mean they'll be able to utilize it. So we are also there to try and make sure that we basically assist in that process. So what are the key differences? Well, the key differences are these. To say in the school-based, the educator is the main player, very important. Whatever they are doing in that space is very important. But you'll see that we broaden the horizon when we go to camp-based, where we now have a community of experts available to mentor the learner. You'll see that we have limited content expertise. Sometimes, for example, where we have kids that are enthusiastic about aspects of science that might not be in the curriculum. Maybe the educator is not well versed in that area, but what we see is in the camp base, it allows us to bring people that are well versed in that area. So a lot of differences that we can see there. Because of time, I'm just going to jump that slide and briefly speak about this one. Well, the outcome is that whilst we are doing this, and if you go back to the slide where I was speaking about the importance of science camps, is to say, well, number one, we were exposing learners to the world of science, but number two is that we are developing them in a range of skills. So you can see there's a range of 21st century skills that we're developing there, but very, very important. I mean, it's skills like social skills. It's skills like collaboration. How do they work together with one another? How do they work together with mentors, with judges? How do they work together with anyone? How do they collaborate with their educator? And that space, which is a research and innovation camp, is a conducive environment for that. We are looking at other skills like, well, reading and writing skills. I think we have had recently data that came out that was speaking to the crisis that we have in South Africa that says the average grade 4 learner cannot read for understanding. Well, research and innovation camp can solve that problem. Next slide. We want to put our learners on big stages, right? That is the ultimate goal. Whenever we're doing this, it's always good to start with the end in mind. And the end is to say, how do we put them on big stages at provincial level? How do we put them on big stages at national level? And how do we put them on big stages on international level? We have seen that successful learners usually, they would be tied to a science camp where mentoring continuously happens in between each and every level, which is very, very important. So some of those learners that we're speaking about earlier that have gone on to do well, when you tie them to a science camp where they have mentoring and adequate support, they are successful. So what then are the things that one should consider as we are slightly going towards the end? Well, the size of the camp is important, especially in the rock schools where the educator-learner ratio is, well, not so great. We want to ensure that when it comes to science camp, the learner-mentor ratio should be very low, so that we also give these learners individual attention. Whenever you have these big camps, right, and you bring someone to speak, you're speaking over the learner, yes, they might get excited, but in terms of the skills that are actually being developed, you want to speak to the individual. Well, the location of and the duration of the camp are going to play a role, especially when it comes to issues with budgeting, finances, expenses, etc. Programmatic elements, you want to consider that. How do you bring activities that are engaging, but also that link with the desired outcome? Sustainability, mentor-mentee relationship, how do we carry it forward going into the future to ensure that there are follow-ups? Strategic partnership with key stakeholders, again we speak. Who are the key stakeholders? How do we bring alumni on board of competitions? How do we bring universities on board? How do you bring science centers on board? Anyone that is working in that space to ensure that participation is of a good quality. The findings and outcomes whenever we engage with this. And that's our next slide. is to say learners enjoy having fun and interacting in this non-threatening environment. Learners demonstrate a pride and joy in showcasing inventions and creativity to each other. Learners learn from each other and share resources. So many of them, but what you see is that at the end of the day, we are developing the learner, and in the process, they are getting skills that they need for them to be productive members of the society. And as we try and reach some of those objectives that we spoke about earlier on, we are breaking barriers. Next slide. And I'll just skip that to the model. Next slide. What we are then now saying is to say, well, when the two work together, it is enough time where we work in silos. I think part of what we are saying in the morning is to say, how do we ensure that what is happening in the school space and the educator as well is equipped? Well, that happens in the camp setting. But whatever is happening in the school space should be appreciated and then should be enhanced with what's happening in the camp arena. And where we want to be is in that green space where we have got acquired skills by learners and teachers, and the end result at all times should be high enthusiasm, quality participation, especially in the raw areas. We don't want our learners to be sitting in an award ceremony and they don't get anything. We want to ensure that their participation is also of quality and ensure low dropout. For conclusion, we realize that R&I camps can play a pivotal role. And as explained, if the two are married together, we can get great success and have more success stories. Thank you very much, colleagues.
It is 2 eyes.
I didn't see it.
So when your brain goes here, right? At the bottom here, right?